Hello all and welcome to the official FanTeam podcast brought to you by FanTeam, the biggest daily fantasy site in Europe. My name is Andrew and today I'm joined by injury analyst and FPL guru Ben Dinnery. Great to have you back on, Ben. Happy New Year.
Yes, all the best, Andrew, my friend. It's great to be back. It seems like, actually, it doesn't seem that long ago since I last spoke. I think it might have been just before the Christmas.
It's long ago in game weeks because we've had about 4 game weeks in about 2 or 3 weeks, haven't we? But yeah, I think
we have, mate.
It is. It's been a bit of a crazy time. We were just discussing before we started recording. So in the last hour, Everton and Aston Villa has just been postponed for game week 19. But now it looks like Aston Villa and Newcastle may be actually going into game week 19. How does this affect you, Ben? You know, with kind of all these constant changes, it must be so tough.
Yeah, look, it's difficult, particularly if I'm looking ahead doing the predicted lineups and the content side of things. That's difficult to manage. I have learned in hindsight during this period to almost just leave things until the last minute. You know, with the quick turnaround and fixtures, as you quite rightly know, because you go over a lot of it for me. Whereas I've done a predicted lineup at the beginning of the week and then sort of tweaked it towards the end, I've almost foregone the beginning part of it just because at the minute it's logistically it's just too difficult and it's not even worth the electronic paper that it's written on half the time. So it's from that point it's it is what it is. We go into this period with our eyes wide open.
Absolutely.
And we've got football. That is I keep on. No matter how frustrating or how annoying it is, I'm just thankful that the Premier League, as it currently stands, is it's still there, and I'm still able to do my job on a daily basis. So thankful for that.
I completely agree. And whereas looking at it just from a fantasy lens, it's frustrating, right? Because we're all kind of fanatics. We all plan. But I've got to be fair to the Premier League. I think they're actually being very proactive now in finding gaps for these games because it would have been very easy for them to move Aston Villa versus Newcastle into the future because neither of them are in Europe. But hopefully, they've been very proactive in terms of, look, there's a gap. Let's get it in and out the way because if we get any more postponements, it turns into a backlog, which could affect the end of the season, which could even impact on the Euros and things. So I've got to be fair to the Premier League. They're pulling out all the stops to make these fixtures happen. And as you say, it's crazy from a fantasy view with all the planning, but from constant football, as you say, us having work, right? Us having football to kind of talk about, finish the season off, do the Euros, go into next year, everything hopefully, reasonably back to normal. Really good stuff. How's it been going for you in your FanTeam season long, Ben?
I would say peaks and troughs, made ups and downs. I try to, go the perception of the template. I try to stay away from that. I stay away from the big hitters. Just the personal approach to things. Staying away from the Brunos, the Trents. I think I touched on it. The Salahs. For me, I just like to keep it interesting. On the understanding that there are going to be weeks where I do really well because the majority of people or a lot of people haven't. But when everybody does bang and when it's going to hit hard. So I'm under no illusion that I'm going for that number one spot. And look, I just enjoy playing the game. And if anything comes of that, then it's a bonus. But it's these weekly monsters, that really gets the juices flowing and where I tend to focus a lot of my attention on as well.
Especially this week with a guaranteed prize pool of €100,000. So we'll touch on that now. So for our YouTube watchers, please remember to click the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen if you haven't already, and to press the like button if you enjoy our content. So as Ben alluded to, our feature tournament for this podcast and video is the Game Week 19 Weekly Monster, which has a prize pool this week of a massive €100,000. And we will be running through the game week's applicable fixtures and sharing our entries with you in this video and podcast. So our watchers and listeners are aware what it is. It's very similar to the free hit chip in Fantasy Premier League, where you basically pick the best 11 players for the game week that you think will score the most points. So just to touch very briefly on the rules, you must build a squad of 11 players. It must include at least one goalkeeper, 3 defenders, 2 midfielders, and a forward. You can select up to a maximum of 3 players from any one Premier League team. You have a budget of 105 million to build your 11-man team. You can make unlimited changes to your team until the first match kicks off, which this week, Saturday, January the 16th, 1:30 CET. You pick a captain and a vice captain, so your captain scores double points. Your vice replaces your captain if he doesn't play. Players are priced in accordance with match odds, which makes it brilliant for the 1 week pump. It also makes it quite tough to build a really good team because you can't just lump in on all the City attackers, or all the Spurs attackers all the time. And the safety net applies. So if a player does not start, he'll be replaced automatically by a cheaper player from the same club and position. So for those watching on YouTube, the point scoring matrix is on screen. As you can see, it's very similar to the season-long FanTeam game and indeed the Fantasy Premier League game. Ben, have you got any inkling on when you think that we'll start to get back to a bit of normality in terms of the schedule? I see the infection rates, kind of as we speak, have fallen now for a couple of days on the trot. Do you think, we're kind of on the way down, or do you think there'll be more and more to the end of the season?
I've always been of the same opinion, going back to sort of February, March last year, that no matter how many of these circuit breakers, these lockdowns to various levels occur, it will not really stand the test of time until people are vaccinated. That's the only way that's going to affect this, and bring those numbers down and get that R rate down. Yeah. The infection rate below 1. So and that's going to be a slow rollout, unfortunately. Maybe later on this year where we'll start to see big jumps forward with regards to that. Of course, we've seen in recent times that the slight sort of variant, the mutation of the virus, which brings another set of complications. But I'm of the understanding that the core of the coronavirus doesn't necessarily change, and tweaks to the vaccine can happen within a matter of hours, 24 to 48 hours, and then roll them out again. Testing and so on and so forth may delay the rollout of that, but what it means is you don't have to go through the whole process and the protocol of bringing a new vaccine to market, which for me was always a concern. So I think we're certainly not out of the tunnel yet, but there's a little glimmer of light. There's a little chink coming through. If football provides that little bit of normality to our day-to-day life, and keeps us sane, when we're homeschooling and and when we're trying to deal with partners who are also working at home, then I'm going to take every single positive that I can possibly grab onto.
I think all the energy you just used then in that last 30 seconds of speech around homeschooling, partners working from home, goodness me. But I think in terms of football for the remainder of this season, I still think we'll see a few more postponements and things. But as we mentioned earlier, you just got to roll with it. You've just got to plan from a fantasy view, and at least the footballers on, which has obviously been incredibly helpful for the mental health of people who love sport and things like that as well. Because I personally think if I hadn't have had football over this winter, I wouldn't know what I would have done. Just it's been really tough. Okay, so there are 3 4-round classic tournaments every game week. This week, one has a prize pool of €20,000 with a guaranteed first prize of €2,000, which you can enter for as little as €2. There is a high roller tournament if you want to play for big money, but our feature tournament for this podcast is the €100,000 prize pool game with a guaranteed €10,000 first prize for just a €20 entry. That will be nice for a holiday in the summer if we're allowed out of the country, Ben, wouldn't it, for sure?
Or plenty toilet rolls.
Plenty of toilet rolls.
Toilet rolls and water.
And pasta on it, The teams we pick can be used across all weekly Monster tournaments. Just a reminder to enter all FanTeam contests. You must be 18 or over and begambleaware.org. For UK-based FanTeam players, you will see that you now also have an option to deposit, play and withdraw with pounds sterling rather than in euros. It's obviously great for people who live in the UK. So for this game week on the FanTeam site, if you look now, there are currently 9 applicable Premier League matches for this competition, which are Wolves versus West Brom, Leeds versus Brighton, West Ham versus Burnley, Fulham against Chelsea, Leicester versus Southampton, Sheffield United against Spurs, Liverpool versus Man United, Manchester City against Crystal Palace, and Arsenal versus Newcastle. We've just had confirmed in the last hour that Aston Villa versus Newcastle is going to go ahead next week. So we're not sure if this will go ahead in this particular game week for FanTeam or not. Check the website out. Obviously, Newcastle already play in this game week away to Arsenal, so we're not sure whether it'll be lumped in as well, but it is worth looking. There are currently no Aston Villa players available for selection because as it stands, they don't have a fixture, but obviously that may change, which is just worth looking out for that. So Ben, looking at the fixtures, 9 to choose from this week, which is obviously nice. So I had to pick from, I think it was 6 in game week 18, which is obviously a bit tougher. What stands out for you for the fixtures?
You know what is, in all honesty, I struggled. I looked at the fixtures and then I looked at the price points, and it was tough. It was really, really tough. You know, some of the teams now, we're approaching the second half of the season where it's now or never. It's that siege mentality. And I'm thinking, you know, the Brighton were put in a decent performance against Manchester City, you know, tightened up. You know, prior to Christmas, I'd be thinking, you know, most teams going against Brighton with a little bit of a showing, but they're showing a bit of fight. Burnley, again, you know, Sean Dyche has got his troops sort of well marshalled, players back from injury. They're looking more like their old selves. New orders on, you know, new owners coming into the club. So you're going to have players out there who are fighting for their future.
Yeah, that's a good show. New
contracts. The Aston Villa game was one that I had highlighted for Everton first.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, you know, and I thought that might be one, but unfortunately not included. We've obviously got Liverpool and Manchester United, which is arguably the pick of the weekend. And which way does that one go? You know, we're talking about a big northwest derby there. And some would argue again that it's maybe, you know, just as big as City and United in terms of the passion between the supporters and the fight on the pitch.
Especially as at the moment they're sat in first and second.
Yeah.
Liverpool are struggling to score a little bit, and United are actually looking a lot more solid defensively and playing well up front. I can't wait to watch that game. It's going to be fascinating.
I mean, we'll obviously touch upon the team as to maybe there'll be one or two surprise selections in that. And the other one, unfortunately, that I looked at would be against my hometown boys, Newcastle, as it stands on Monday night at the Emirates. You know what, the way I think Steve Bruce has been able to get away with a lot of things, COVID, injury, generally picking up the odd result then and there. We're on a poor run as it currently stands, and we travel down to Bramall Lane against a team who has 2 points, 8 goals from 18 games, and the worst start to any season, I think, across the Football League. And we line up with a 5-4-1, and they're absolutely, it's indefensible for me. There's no excuses, and not only that, but you then have to, your heart goes out to people like Callum Wilson, who are, you know, being fed on crumbs, and it's so frustrating because there's just nothing coming in terms of that creative spark.
He's such a good player. You know, I think if he played for, you know, a top 6 team, I think he would do a really good job because he's such a good player, and he's kind of been a bit wasted at the moment, that number 9 role at Newcastle, isn't he?
I mean, frustratingly, I think United have got the personnel to be able, you know, you could still if you wanted to err on the side of caution, you could still go with a 4-2-3-1, but you could, your three behind Wilson could be Fraser, who was back, Almiron, who we benched.
He's a really good player.
And I know obviously Stan Maxim's working his way back, but he's had that opportunity to play those four in attack, and it may have only happened once or twice this season. It just, he sets up, he's got this defensive mindset, and the issue is when you play games like Sheffield United, it's not, you cannot just flip the switch. It's become sort of ingrained in the psyche of the players now. And, we have to be careful because we are on the slippery slope. Make no bones about it. And Arsenal are on the up. Yeah. So that's one on paper that you would look at and think, right, well, actually, that looks like your home banker win for Arsenal.
It's tough this week. I think it's always hard when the big teams have got an easier fixture because they tend to be, obviously their prices are quite inflated, aren't they then? And then it's very hard then to try and squeeze everyone in. I think Wolves and West Brom will probably be a bit of a stalemate. I think that West Brom probably set up not to lose. Wolves' defensive form at home has been good, so I think that's probably a bit of a stalemate. Leeds and Brighton, I do agree, although I think Brighton probably had a bit of a game plan to just to keep the score down almost against Man City. I think they'll have to try and go for something against Leeds. I think that Leeds should probably score a goal or two there and probably not keep a clean sheet as they struggle to do. Leeds, West Ham and Burnley, probably I agree with you again. Burnley will just dig in right, and look for 0-0 potentially there. Fulham and Chelsea, I think, is an interesting one because actually watching Fulham and Spurs last night, Fulham were very dynamic, proactive, played really well. Chelsea are on in a bit of a slump. So I personally targeted a couple of Fulham players, which I'll touch on in a minute, but Chelsea are struggling. So I certainly don't think that one is as one-sided as it would be, a few weeks ago. Leicester, Southampton, could be anything. Both teams playing really, really well. Both good in defence. Both have got, the Leicester have got Vardy, Southampton have got Ings, really good strikers. It could be anything really. Sheffield United and Spurs, I think the way that Sheffield United are defending has improved. They don't tend to concede many, and Spurs tend to try and get the goal or two and sit back. So, maybe Spurs will win, but, maybe like a 1-0 or a 2-0, I can foresee there. Liverpool and Man United, really tough to call, as I kind of mentioned earlier. I think United are probably on the up of the teams out of the two, but I also think United will not want to lose there. So as much as I hate to say it, I can see it potentially being a bit of a boring sort of 0-0 or 1-0 either way. Man City and Palace, obviously Palace play Arsenal this evening, so we get to see a bit more of them. But you would expect Man City to score a couple there and win there comfortably. And Arsenal, Newcastle, as you say, mate, it's tough times at the moment. Arsenal on the up, Newcastle in a bit of a slump. I think you're right. I can see an Arsenal, maybe a 2 or 3-0 there, maybe, because they're also defending well as now they're scoring a couple of goals. So a really, really interesting game week. And my team is certainly not as it kind of normally is. I normally have quite, an attacking team, but it's hard to squeeze them in. So we've got your team now, Ben, up on screen. Could you just run through for our podcast listeners and give us your thoughts?
Yeah, so this is very much of this specific game week. And, we alluded to the fact that, big teams against maybe the so-called lesser teams, and the value just wasn't there for me.
Yeah, I agree.
You touched upon it in the build-up to this. I went triple Man United.
You can see, wow.
And it's purely based on just value for money in and around that. 6.9 for De Gea. And he's going to start. But particularly in that back line, I went with a 4-3-3. Harry Maguire, he's always a threat on set pieces. Very unlucky not to get his goal choked off midweek.
I love the way how Peter Crouch tweeted at that time. he said, if that's a foul, I would have only scored about 50% of the goals I'd have scored in my career. Because, just putting an arm on the back or shoulder, there wasn't a push as such. He was using kind of leverage, wasn't he?
Yeah.
But I thought, and it was a great header as well, from a tight angle,
Brilliant.
top corner. So it was really unlucky.
And it hit hard out as a Maguire owner as well.
It was
so
that one
hurt.
That's the same.
Yeah. And Wan-Bissaka, basically because he offers that little bit of an attacking threat, up and down the lane, works hard. Defensively, on occasions has been a little bit suspect, but does link up the play in that, those attacking thirds quite well. So that's me 3 United. But, Liverpool are always a threat. It's going to be a big game. I'm hoping it comes to fruition, what you said. Very tight.
I think it will.
1 goal to nick it. And you know what? If United done that, then, I'd be quite a happy man.
You would. You'd be laughing.
Kieran Tierney would be the other attacking fullback. Again, I just don't see Newcastle really threatening, to be honest. If Steve Bruce wants to set up the 5-4-1 at Bramall Lane, then I can't really see anything other than a
6-4-0.
Just a 10, just a 1-10 at the Emirates. So, if that's the case, there's going to be lots of opportunity for Tierney to bomb on. And we know in terms of his distribution and final passing, he's on it. He's grown into that role now. And he's getting that consistency of games, which he hadn't had because of injury. So I'm really liking him at the moment. And the final place, which is again it's another punt, but it's based on price point really, is Furlow. Furlow. I've got Furlow on the. Furlow on the brain. It's got lockdown brain. Furlow. Look, Wolves. I've got Furlow brain. So Furlow, it's a Black Country derby. Wolves haven't been great. They're never going to be sort of far out. We've got the little mistakes creeping into their game. Fabio Silva has been singled out by Nuno. Even the number of chances, poor distribution. It wouldn't surprise me if he's taken out the firing line just a little bit. The pressure's mounting. He's a young kid in a new environment, new league, and he's struggling. So then I would question, well, who comes in for Wolves and who fills that? Is it Patrick Citrone? And if that's the case, I think he's only got a matter of maybe 200 to 300 minutes of competitive play this season. So he's going to be a little bit rusty. And that was across in Syria. You know what Sam Allardyce is going to do. If Steve Bruce is going to 5-4-1, Big Sam's going to do a 22-0, whatever he possibly can. So, that could be a really tight one, maybe a 0-0. And so that's why he gets the nod. And that backline, allows me to splash the cash in other areas and go all Keegan and, all guns blazing. Kevin De Bruyne in midfield. City have the fixture, in my opinion, against Palace. They have a decent record. Kevin's been really unlucky in recent times. We've seen, he should have had his second assist midweek if it wasn't for Raheem Sterling. Consistently now, frustrating for him, because he's creating a lot of big chances and City just aren't taking those. But City are on the up. They're improving. I think it's just a matter of time before, Kevin gets his just rewards for, his performances. Maybe he isn't grabbing the headlines as such because he isn't hitting them numbers, but I think that's more just about the players around him who aren't finishing, the chances that he's actually creating. Now, I've paired him with James Maddison in midfield. Now, the issue obviously is that James Maddison is managing an ongoing knee problem. So my concern, can he string 2 games in quick succession? Well, there are no guarantees. So my feeling is that, they'll go all out and, give it the big one on Saturday against Southampton, because, you look at United, Liverpool, City, and maybe Tottenham. Now Southampton have emerged up there as like challengers for that maybe that lead, that Leicester sort of place, and I'm expecting a really good game with a lot of. I know Southampton have defended really well, but I think there's going to be goals in this. I'm thinking 2-2, possibly 3-3.
Yeah.
And Madison is being good nick, and I've paired him alongside James Ward-Prowse. Both of those players inherently will, maybe competing for a place in Gareth Southgate's, England Euro squad.
Sure.
It's an opportunity for people will be talking about those two players. So it's all going to be one-upmanship. It's about what they're doing from dead balls, about what they create. So a great platform for both players, and I really expect them to stand up and be counted and really put a marker in the sand for their respective sides. So that's the three in midfield: De Bruyne, Madison, and Ward-Prowse. And up front, again, I went with a Leicester Southampton combo just because of the reasons that I've outlined. Jamie Vardy, again, we know he's managing an ongoing hip issue, so there would be doubts for the next game. So for this one, a big performance. We know what we get with Jamie Vardy. He might only touch the ball 3, 4, 5 times in the game, but he's got
all he needs, buddy.
Yeah. And Danny Ings, been very surprised at how quickly he's hit the ground running, coming back off his injury. Looked really sharp. Very unfortunate to get a goal ruled out over Christmas on his return through it wasn't offside, but it was Shea Adams' foot. When he beat two defender and he slotted calmly past you. Always a threat. Work rate is immense. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to that to me in terms of entertainment and excitement. The Leicester Southampton game is the one I'm looking forward to. And finally, Alexander Lacazette in attack. He seems to be, he is carrying the form going into this game. He's slightly cheaper than Aubameyang. And for me, it's a no-brainer with that regard. Like I say, I expect him to play centrally. He's one of those players. He's a little bit like Anthony Martial, in my opinion. A lot of it comes down to his mood and his morale and that level of confidence. When he's smiling, when he looks like he's enjoying his football, he's very expressive and he goes out and he puts in the performance. When it's the other way, you very rarely get. He's not a consistent high 7s, 8s, 9s. It's an 8.5 and 9, or it's a 3. And I think the key with players like Lacazette is jumping on when they're in this rich vein of form and when they're playing well, because potentially we offer some great returns.
I bet you it stings to pick Lacazette against your beloved Newcastle.
Do you know what? When it comes to fantasy, I am pretty much definitely a head over heart, and I try not to let the emotions out. Yeah, and so I try not to let that cloud my judgment too much. So do you know what? If or when we get absolutely trounced, then I just hope that Lacazette. What would hurt more if Arsenal won 5-0? This is fact. What would hurt more is if Lacazette didn't bring an attacking return.
That's right.
I would be absolutely raging.
Double blow.
Newcastle getting beat 5-0. I expect that.
Yeah.
But Arsenal scoring 5 and Lacazette getting 0 returns, like Rashford did against Leeds. And United scored 6 and Rashford absolutely flipped out. Centre's absolutely crazy. Never. The rage, the absolute rage, it took us 3 days to calm down. So look, I'll take Newcastle getting beat if Lacazette gets on the score sheet.
I think
spoken like a true supporter.
Absolutely. I do think the furlong pick, is it's a really good one. I haven't really looked at him, but he's got a few attacker returns as well this season, haven't he? He's like the Ward-Prowse one as well. He's very cheap at 7.9. Is his set piece delivery is just superb. So yeah, I really like those budget picks. If Man United can keep a clean sheet, as you say, which I don't think is is beyond all realms a possibility. Then you're very well set up there. Really nice team there, Ben. So onto my team, which looks very very different. um,
But we always do differ immensely, don't
we
we?
always do. I agree with you. I found it really hard this week to pick a team. So I've gone for Areola in goals for Fulham. So as I mentioned earlier, I do think that Fulham will give Chelsea a really hard time. I'm not sure if Areola, will keep a clean sheet as such, but again, he's a really good keeper. As he proved last night against Spurs, he always makes lots of saves. So even if he does concede, they get the save point. So I tend to go for the cheapest keeper, or one of the cheapest ones. And it does me well every week. I always get a couple of points every week off a keeper, so I'm happy with that. I've gone for back five at the moment, but from your thoughts on Furlong and Ward-Prowse, they may have a shifty round. So I've gone for Saiss at the moment against West Brom. I don't expect West Brom to score. I think Saiss, he's been on form for them, really good attacking threat as well. But he is 9.8, and when you consider that Furlong is kind of the equivalent, okay, a less chance of a clean sheet, but I could potentially save, was that 4.7 million there. I could have a change of that, but I do think that Saiss is a good pick. I've gone for an Arsenal double up at the back, so I've gone for Tierney and Bellerin. So we've talked about Arsenal and Newcastle. Bellerin has been really effective on that right hand side. He's got some assists as well this season. I could have actually afforded Rashford instead of Bellerin and gone for a 4-3-3, but as we've mentioned, I'm just not sure that Liverpool and Man United, I think it'll be a bit of a stalemate. So I've gone for a bit of upside potentially in Bellerin. I've gone for Creswell, who I've gone for a few times in this actually because of his set pieces. They're home to Burnley. They've kept clean sheets back to back now. I think he's got 2 assists in his last 3 or his last 4 games. Creswell as well. So at 9 million, I think he offers good value at both ends of the pitch. And I went for James Justin, but for Leicester at home to Southampton, because I think he's a fabulous player. I think he's a super, super player. But I do agree with you, actually, that I think there may be a couple of goals in that game. So I could potentially move off him as well. But that's the back five at the moment. I've gone for a 3 in midfield, captain on Kevin De Bruyne. Apparently, he was too exhausted to take the penalty last night. I mean, imagine on that last free kick in the 93rd minute that Brighton would have scored, and it would have ended at 1-1. Just take the penalty. Stop messing around. Sterling has missed his last 3 penalties now. Mm-hmm. I think they gave him it. This whole give them confidence. You don't do that when you're chasing 3 points. If you're 3-0 up, fair enough. You're 1-0 up against a team like Brighton, who are very dangerous on set pieces. Take the points. So yeah, I was a bit frustrated there because I captained him in other games as well. Obviously, he didn't get the assist or the goal in the end. I've gone for Bruno at 9.1. You just can't get him down, right? He just seems to return in nearly every game. I know he didn't in his last game, but you just that penalty factor. Players like Robertson are quite rash actually in making mistakes in their own area, both in terms of giving away fouls, but also giving away chances. He's fantastic, Robertson in the attack, but in their own area, I think Liverpool can be a bit sloppy at times. So I wouldn't be surprised to see penalty there potentially. And I tell you what, Ben, I've got my eye on this boy after watching him last night again. Ademola Lookman. So he's 6.4 million. He is playing a Chelsea defence who have been struggling of late. This boy is dynamite. I'll call it now. So what's the date? It's like this. Is it the 16th of January?
14th.
Okay. So it's the 14th of January, 2021. I predicted a couple of years' time, this boy is going to be a world beater. It's very rare you see someone so rapid and so impactful. He's rough around the edges, right? He's a bit kind of all over the place. But once he sorts that out, my goodness me, that cross for the goal against Spurs was absolute class. He came on and he changed the game. He was absolutely fantastic, and I think we've got a world beat on our hands there. So,
Scotty Parker is a massive fan. He's a big believer. That level of confidence in a player is, that'll be a big shot in the arm for Lookman as well. And Scott Parker said if he can recapture anything like the form that he had in Everton days, we've got a big player.
Oh, do you know what? I think he looks fantastic. He's so quick feet, good delivery, good shot, confidence. Well, he missed that penalty a kind of month or 6 weeks ago against West Ham, which obviously but he'll learn from that, right? He will learn from that. So yeah, I've stuck him in, and I expect him to actually score points at home to Chelsea. Just the way that Fulham played, the way that Chelsea, struggled a bit. So that's my 3 midfield, and I've gone for 2 up front. So I've gone for Bamford at home to Brighton. So like I say, it's just the volume of shots with Bamford. He gets away so many shots. I think I'm right in saying he's got the most shots off in the Premier League this season because Leeds just creates so many chances. I think that Brighton will line up a bit differently against Leeds, they say, than he did against City. So I can see Bamford getting a goal there. I'm taking a bit of a punt then on Michail Antonio back from injury. West Ham against Burnley. Last season, he was phenomenal when he was fit. He's just a bully, in terms of he's just so powerful and aggressive. He'll really drive that West Ham team forward. On penalties, superb in the air, superb on the ground. So I think you do a good one as well. So my only changes, which I'm kind of thinking about there, as you mentioned, maybe Furlong could allow me to upgrade Bellerin then to another City attacker or something along those lines. But yeah, reasonably kind of happy, I think, with that team. Looks okay, I think.
Yes, definitely solid, mate. Solid. The only concern I would have, and I agree, Michail Antonio is a great player. Coming off the back of this ongoing hamstring problems, will it be a case of Moyes managing Michail Antonio through these couple of games, and therefore is it likely that he might only be on the pitch for around about 60 minutes?
Maybe,
and that would be my only concern. But then again, who's Moyes looking at to bring in? I know the young guy that they picked up from Manchester United, I think last year, is the player that would probably look to back up from the bench. So yeah, that would be one. But we know, Antonio, if he can replicate any of the form that he's done through Project Restart, so I'm sure that he scored 8. I don't think anybody scored any more than him doing Project Restart. Then yeah, you've got he's a good pick.
He got the 4 goals against Norwich, wouldn't he? And I wasn't playing FanTeam then actually, but I was playing a couple of other games. I put him in those just because I thought that home game against Norwich. It's a bit of a place. It's always in the back of my mind whenever I think of Antonio. He's that kind of player that when he's on it, he is on it, and he's a wonderful striker.
And West Ham in good form as well, playing very well under David Moyes, looking tight, compact. The likes of Souček and stuff are really starting to come to the fore now. So Ben Roma, all right, what is that? I think there's a player there as well.
I agree with that.
Looking comfortable. So yeah, good. I think positive signs definitely for West Ham.
Okay, so that is it from us for this episode. All the links are below for all the games we have discussed today. Thank you so much, Ben, for joining me this week. We'll have you on again very soon, and thank you, and the best of luck for you for game week 19 with your team, both in in FanTeam and with all the other games you play as well.
Yeah.
It's hard times at the moment trying to keep abreast of everything and plan, but we wouldn't have it any other way, right? This is
definitely. No, I appreciate that. Good luck to you as well, Andrew, and it's been a pleasure, my friend.
It has indeed. So remember that if you liked what you watched, please press the like button and remember to subscribe to the channel in the bottom right hand corner of the screen. If you're listening on a podcast, please rate the podcast and leave a comment. That would be very, very helpful. So this podcast will be available as a video on the FanTeam YouTube channel and available as an audio on all major podcast libraries, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and SoundCloud. Just search for Official FanTeam Podcast. Our website is fanteam.com, Our Twitter handles are at FanTeamOfficial and at FanTeam_UK. Give us a follow for regular game updates and for entry giveaways for lots of other FanTeam competitions. We'll be back very soon, looking ahead to the Game Week 20 Weekly Monster. The very best of luck for Game Week 19. Goodbye for now.